So we're going to go ahead and get started. I am so excited that you're here, Ashley. Partly it's selfish because I'm considering Finnsheep, so I'm going to ask all the questions, but we're going to talk about lots of stuff today. So let's start out. Introduce yourself. Tell us just briefly about your farm, and then we're going to kind of get into some things.
Yeah, great. So I'm Ashley Hoffman. We are in Central Virginia. Culpeper County is where we're located. And I have my Finnsheep, and we recently added French Angora rabbits to the farm. My boys are also raising Polish rabbits. They're not a fiber rabbit, but they're still super fun. And then we have our laying flock of ducks, and we've got some chickens, and then I also have my bees. And we put an orchard in, smaller orchard, last year, with some kind of mature-ish fruit trees. So we're also working on that too and stuff. So
Truly a diversified farm.
yes, very much so. Very, very much so. And I spin and I knit. I used to crochet a lot more, but now that I've gotten the hang of knitting, I just can't be stopped. And I also do a little bit of weaving, mainly on my rigid heddle. I'd love a bigger loom to do stuff with, but it hasn't happened.
And where to put it, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So did the sheep come first?
Yeah, so the sheep were my first farm animal, I guess we'll say, on the farm. And I got them because I wanted my own source of fiber. I was crocheting mainly at the time, and I wanted something that could help reduce the amount of mowing that we had to do, as well as provide a source of fiber. So I ended up getting fins. I got a trio of friends from a lady that I'm still friends with. She's about an hour away here in Virginia. And then I also had baby doll South Downs. I had some Cotswolds, some Wensleydale Lincoln crosses. What else have I had? I had a East Frisian at one point, but I've always had fins. And decided that I didn't want any of the other breeds. I just wanted all fins because they're wonderful and they stole my heart. So now I have a bunch of fins.
So what was it about the fins that intrigued you?
Yeah, so at the time when we got them, right now my boys are 14, they're twins, and they were little when we first got the fins. And I really liked their personalities. They are like giant puppy dogs. They are a short-tailed breed, so we don't dock their tails. Their tails are only about 6 to 8 inches. And you can give them, they'll come up for chin scratches and chest scratches, and they'll just sit and wag their tail, and they're gentle. So it made it really nice with having young boys, because they love to help with the sheep. And it made it easy for me to take care of them by myself. My husband works in the city, so he commutes 87 miles one way to work and back. And so he's gone most of the day. But it makes it easy so I can go out and put a halter on somebody, tie them to the fence, and I can trim feet, just pick their feet up like they're a horse, and trim their feet. If I needed to go out to give somebody medicine or something, or just check on them, I can just walk up to them in the field and carry some cookies in my pocket, and next thing I know, I can't walk because they've created a circle around me.
I'm sold. Awesome. So have you,
And then,
go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, and also the colors that they come in. There's a wide variety of color, and the natural color that they have is beautiful. The blacks and the browns, spotted, so piebald, badger face, just tons of different color options.
Right, a little like Shetlands.
Yeah, very much so.
With
very much so.
Colors.
Yeah, and the genetics, as far as the color genetics, are very similar to Shetlands when you're breeding for certain colors and things.
Okay. So I want to So have you always been on the farm, or was this
So I actually, so it's interesting. I grew up riding horses and competing. I rode English. I started in hunters and then got into pony club and did some eventing, had my boys, and I still have my horse. I still have 3 horses who are just fat and happy in the field, having a grand time and loving life. But I was no longer invincible after I had my boys, and I was, competing and jumping things that were bolted and concreted together. And I couldn't risk couldn't risk injuring myself. I broke my sternum and other things and falls like in high school and stuff that I pay for every damp day. Because it'll end up hurting. But so I grew up with livestock in that sense, but not necessarily farming.
okay?
That being said, after we bought our property, I have done some genealogy work and talked to actually it's my my maternal grandmother's brother, and come to find out, her maiden name was Willis, and the Willis family actually settled in Culpeper County in like the 1600s. And the original property is only about 5 minutes from me, and they farmed that whole area, and the house is still there. My husband and I drove by so we could see it, and there's other descendants in the area. And so it was neat because it was like kind of came back home, but not knowing that it was home,
Oh,
which was
cool.
kind of cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
I grew up riding as well.
Okay.
And I'm not a very talented hunter jumper person, but I like to ride English. So dressage, after having some really terrible accidents, dressage became
Yes.
my thing. Okay, I'm going to close that door. I'll be right back.
Fine.
You're being rude. All right. Speaking of dogs who want to know who the disembodied voice is.
Yes.
All right. So I want to come back to the sheep because I'm not done.
Absolutely.
But I find it, you have probably thought about this. I find it ironic that Finnsheep have multiples.
Yes.
And you have multiples.
Yes.
Because you have twins.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank goodness I didn't have as many at a time as my sheep do. We had up to 6 before in a litter. I only twinned, so that was plenty for me at once.
How old are your boys?
14. They just turned 14 in July.
All right. And you're a part of the farming adventure?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we homeschool our boys, so they are here on the farm with me all the time. They will help us make hay. Today we had my vet out to do ultrasounds on all my ewes to confirm pregnancy. And they were out there. I had one of them helping me catch while the other was acting as my scribe as the vet ultrasounded. And they're at that age where it is becoming a little bit of work to them. It's not, they're always like, oh, Mom, okay. But they really do love their sheep. And they also, they're in 4-H. And so they show sheep. They do market lambs and then breeding classes with my Finns.
Okay.
But they show sheep and rabbits and poultry.
Okay.
4-H.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's wonderful to do it as a family. My kids lasted for a while. We've always lived on a farm, but they lasted for a while, and then they were, at some point they are kind of done with it. Okay, so Finns have litters.
Big litters. Most sheep, it'll be singles, twins, maybe triplets.
Right.
Year before last, I had, well, no, it was this past year. I had 33 ewes that lambed. And I had 88 lambs from those 33 ewes.
Okay.
One of them was a single. The rest were all multiples. Sometimes it'll be like the first timers that have singles, and the Finns, as from their breed standard, are supposed to lamb around their first birthday. So they are bred for the first time around 7 months.
Oh,
Gestation
okay.
is 5 months, and then right around their first birthday, they lamb. The rule of thumb with that is they should be 75% of their adult weight prior to being bred. So if they're not, they get held over, and then as a yearling, they would be bred.
Okay. That seems
Yeah, and so
really early to me.
yeah, well, and they early sexual maturity is part of their breed standard.
Right.
And those ram lambs, you've got to right at weaning, I wean at 90 days. And those ram lambs, they have to be two, fences
Right.
away from
Because
all
they're
the
ready,
girls.
right?
Oh, they're ready.
Yeah.
They are ready and they are willing. Yes,
Right.
absolutely. Absolutely. So we get some singles with the first timers, mainly twins, sometimes triplets, first timers. And after that, all bets are off. I had one ewe give me triplets as a yearling, and then she gave me quads, and then she had a litter of 6, and then she had a litter of 4.
Wow.
So yeah, they are super prolific, and the lambs are tiny when they're born.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm trying to improve in my flock is birth weight. When I first got my sheep, there was a lot of like 2 and 3 pounders at birth. And I'm aiming for about 6 to 7 pounds
Okay.
for each baby. They're just a lot more vigorous. They've got a little bit more meat on their bones so that they can regulate their own body temperature and things like that. And I'm all but there with those birth weights. Every once in a while, you'll get a larger litter. Sometimes the placental attachment isn't as good, and so you get one that is almost a little bit stunted and in the womb, and so they're a little bit smaller than everybody else, but for the most part everybody is where I want them as far as those 6 to 7 pound lambs. But my smallest one was 2.2 pounds. And when I held her, her butt would be at the heel of my hand and her little chest would be at the tip of that was her body. She was an itty bitty little thing, and she grew fast. And she went on to have lambs of her own. But they can be tiny little things.
Yeah. So when
Yeah.
do you start lambing? Are you doing that in the cold?
No, so this year I changed it up a little bit.
Okay.
Traditionally, I have lambed in like February into March. And our weather is kind of unpredictable at that time. I mean, we don't get super, super cold by any means, but we get a wet cold.
Okay.
And so I find that wet cold can be kind of hard on them and me. 88 lambs last year was bonkers. I had like 6 or 7 ewes lambing at one time last year, like simultaneously. It was like 9 ewes that day that lambed. And I was like, holy moly, I'm calling the house going, hey boys. And it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, steam's rising off of new lambs, just being born everywhere. And I was like, boys, I need some help. Please come help. But this year they are due to lamb April 1st. So first week of April is when we'll get started, and ultrasounds showed that that's about when it's going to be.
That feels much better to me. I don't like lamb sickles.
No, I don't either. And that's part of the tricky part with the multiples. While they are strong and vigorous at birth, you get mom and she'll lay down and have one. She starts cleaning it off. Contractions come again, and she might do some circles and things, lay down, have another one. And sometimes one will just get forgotten in the mix. If she has 4 or 5 or 6.
That first
They can
one.
kind of get a little scattered, or you end up with a ewe that comes and tries to steal it or something.
Yep.
And then decides all of a sudden, no, I don't want it anymore. But then mom doesn't want it because it's trying to be stolen. And
Yep.
so I also wanted to time my lambing with the grass. I feel that in April we will have some good grass coming in. 2 years ago, most of my pasture was wooded and we had it cleared. We didn't seed. I'm just utilizing the natural seed bed that was there, but through the intensive rotational grazing, it's really improved that pasture.
Wow.
So I'm hoping to, even if I have them in the barn to lamb, because I have my cameras in the barn, so I can, kind of be a Mrs. Kravitz and sit
Right.
there and,
Yep.
stare at my screen and
Yep.
waiting for them. But that way, once they are settled with their babies, they can go out on grass, and the mamas can utilize that really good grass to make some really good milk.
So okay, that's weird in the winter to have a fly. How many can a ewe support? 6 lambs?
So overachiever could.
Okay.
I do find though that sometimes that'll drag her down a lot. She'll just use so many resources of her resources to produce that milk. I expect my girls to be able to nurse quads.
Okay.
I do, part of the reason why I will have them lamb in the barn and then they go into their individual little jugs, their little pens, is so that I can really kind of watch them in that first 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours. Everybody gets birth weight. Your little ears are so tiny at birth. I normally don't ear tag them at birth, but I do, I will mark them with the little marking paint so that I can know who belongs to who once they are let out.
Yep.
That gets really creative after a while.
Right. There's only so many colors. Right?
Yeah, exactly. A green dot on the left ear, and
Yep.
it's crazy. But I do expect them to be able to nurse quads, and in that time, I'm taking the birth weight. Plus, if anything looks suspicious, I will monitor actually with weights as well as just a physical inspection.
Yeah.
Because that weight can be really telling in the next day. So if somebody needs support, 100% they get it. But through selection, my girls can pretty much do quads. Now, if they have higher than quads, it is incredibly rare for a Finn to reject a baby.
Okay.
I've only had it done once, and it was not her fault. But if they need support, I leave them with mom, and I bring a bottle down, and I'll just pull that one to the side and top it off, kind of thing. That way, they can still learn to be a sheep.
Yes.
They don't need to be pulled from their familial unit. They can hang out with their mom and their siblings, but still get that support. The only time I had one that rejected her lamb, I had to go back on my cameras to see what exactly happened because I was asleep at the time. It was like my 45-minute window of sleep, and that's when she did it. But it was mother and daughter, and they both went into labor at the same time. And one of them, I think it was the daughter, had laid down, had her first lamb, got up, started cleaning it, and then was starting to get uncomfortable as the second lamb was getting ready. Well, her mother, in the meantime, started labor, and she's kind of doing her circles and everything. Well, one of the water bags came out, and as it did, she happened to be standing over her daughter's lamb. Water bag broke right on top of her daughter's lamb, so now that lamb smelled like her instead of her daughter.
Yep.
And so I would have never believed it or thought of it unless I went back and looked at the cameras, but we ended up getting them sorted, and mom, I think, had twins. So I was able to foster that one onto her since she already loved the lamb, and the lamb said, okay, if you're going to be my mom, I'll take
Okay.
you. So, but other than that, I've never had one reject one for any other reasons. It was just a silly thing that happened.
I just can't think of a reason not to have fins now.
They're
That's
awesome.
awesome. So when you say you support, okay, so you said when you support, you bottle feed, but they're with the family.
Exactly.
Do they, I've had a hard time getting them on the bottle if mom's an option.
Yeah,
Are they
so
pretty good about that?
yes. So what I tend to do is anybody, I do it with my quads just in case, even though I haven't had one, uh, reject one or, in that case, but if in case something happened to her milk supply, um, with quads or higher, I do keep, a little bottle in the barn and I'll just milk out some of mom's colostrum. And I just make sure that I physically see every single lamb get that colostrum and I'll help them with the bottle. If I didn't do it, they would probably be a-okay, and I'm very much of a helicopter mom when it comes
Me
to it.
too. Me
But
too.
that way I can lay my head down when I go back inside and know, okay, everybody got some colostrum.
Exactly.
But I kind of feel like in doing that, they at least kind of get exposed to that bottle. And if they're not getting enough, like if they're kind of a little runtier one and they just kind of, brothers and sisters end up getting in there before they do, um, they'll be hungry and they'll want the bottle. So I find that they're not too, they fight me on it too much, then maybe I made an error and they don't need it.
Right.
But for the most part, if they need it, they're willing.
Right. If they're hungry, they're hungry. Right.
They're hungry, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just
Right.
like with kids, if they're hungry enough, they'll eat the broccoli.
Right.
Yep.
Or disappears on the floor. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the fiber.
Yes.
So
Um, but, um, there's I'm sure people are tired of hearing me say it, but with the fins, there is a huge variation to their fiber. The breed standard really doesn't have set parameters as far as what that fiber should look like, what it should feel like. It basically says single coated, consistent from shoulder to breech. I think it says it does give either a medium length or it gives an approximate stable length. But that's pretty much it. So you get some that are a lot more, I call it like long wool type locks, where it's kind of that Shirley Temple kind of curl, that open curl to it. Then you get some that are a much finer, crimpier lock style. You get that French fry crimp. There's a little bit of everything. For me, I prefer that nice, tight little, that's what I like. And I like lots of density. I like a lot of density. It helps to repel the VM. And I learned this from my French Angora rabbits with blowing them out and grooming them. Um, and I guess I knew it, but it was the way that it was told to me made so much more sense. But that consistency, not only shoulder to bridge, but from the tip of the lock down to the skin. Because when it's consistent from the tip of the lock to the skin, that crimp can like zipper together. And
right.
then that is what repels the VM, but it also prevents that cross fibering where it'll start to fill.
Oh,
And someone had explained it to me that way with the rabbits, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense with my sheep as well. And so super consistent is what I like to see. And that nice little puppy little locks is what I'm breeding for.
So get micron count. Give us, I know you said there's a wide range.
Yeah, there is a wide range. I have never tested my flock.
Okay.
Breed standard says somewhere, I mean, I've seen it everywhere from like 24 to 36 or so.
Okay.
So there is a huge range. And I would suggest asking questions before getting fiber from someone that raises fins, because there is that wide variation. I was working on cats today, and I've got some of this is a little bit. This is a shorter piece, but of course it's chartreuse, so it's like the hardest thing to see in the world. But you can even see some of this is more of that looser lock, the little curly tips, and then some of it is here. As soon as I pull it, tries to open. Some of it is these nice, this is what I like, these nice little locks like this, obviously a little bit longer. But some of it is a lot more open. And I find that those open fleeces will try to felt. I mean, you'll have like crimp, and then the tips get kind of curly.
Okay.
And that I find to get really wispy, and it cross fibers and will felt pretty quick. Whereas those nice little organized locks, they really stay together nicely. And you don't end up with felting issues.
So you breed you shear once a year?
Yes. I shear once a year for the most part. I've got a couple overachievers that will grow really long fleeces. And we've played with shearing twice a year. And then it's tricky because I've got ones that benefit from twice a year, and then other ones that do great on once a year, and you do twice a year, and then the other one, and then no one's on the same schedule, and it's super obnoxious. So I'm leaning towards selecting for those that are once a year and that maintain and hold that fleece quality through that whole year.
Okay. Do you all shear your own, or do you have a shearer come?
I have a wonderful shearer named Anne in Maryland. And she's taught me how to shear. I, for a couple years, rode with her and was her shearing assistant. And we went all over Virginia shearing. And like, I would just go on runs with her that could be like a day trip for me. Just because of the boys and the animals and stuff. And it was so much fun. Saw all kinds of things.
What a great experience.
But all kinds of things. But it was a lot of fun. So I will try to share some of mine. I was telling my husband that I would really like to make more of a concerned effort to shear myself. You keep at me around the corner, like, really?
How many sheep
only
is
because
that?
right now I'm down to 17 ewes.
Okay.
So it's not a ton. I did a really big call after lambing last year, just to concentrate some of those genetics down. But I'm looking to increase that number back up some. I would love to be able to shear as many of my own as I can. My back can only take so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's for
it's
years I
so
watched my
hard.
shearer and I thought it hurts just to watch, and he's so quick. And then we got goats, and now I shear my own, and oh my word, I mean, and we do it on a stanchion, but I'm just like crippled when I'm done.
It's but it is nice, like, to be able to take each one and win that, because you always end up with the fleece being, oh my gosh, this is absolutely beautiful, it's perfect, it's pristine. Shearer will be here next week to shear, Then you get a wave of humidity and everybody gets itchy. And next thing you know, they're all felted and you go, oh crap, what
Right.
happened?
Right.
It was perfect. So it would be wonderful to be able to shear them in that moment when the time is right for each individual fleece. But life makes that hard.
So it sounds like these would not be a good candidate for coating.
Actually, I do know a lot of fin breeders that do coat,
Oh,
and
okay.
I am actually planning to toy with that a little bit this year.
Okay.
I'm gonna get just a couple and try it out on some of my really patient ewes that are
Right.
just, you
'Cause you
know,
gotta catch
along for
them.
exactly. And I've got a couple that 2051. She never got a proper name, but her ear tag number just stuck. And I can't think of her as anything different now, but
Sure.
she's one like today. When we were doing ultrasound, she's just like, she got her turn, she had hers done, and then she just stands right there next to you. Every once in a while, wags her tail or, you know, nibbles on your pants. And my vet kept saying, well, what about this one? No, we've already done that one.
She wanted
so-
another turn.
Right. She's going to be a great candidate because she's always right there in your pocket. And she's patient. Like I can do any, I put her in a halter one day, tied her to my feed bunk and turned over a bucket and sat there and just started shearing away on her. And she's standing there just wagging her tail.
Nice.
I mean, she's just a love bug.
So you could
she's
skirt on the hoof.
Exactly.
I love
So
that.
yeah. So she'll be a great candidate for me to try it out.
Okay.
A lot of people use the Rocky sheep coats that are the lighter
Yeah,
weight.
he's local to me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they use the lightweight ones, and they say that as long as you are up on your coat changes, that the fins do really well with that lighter weight one. And my
Right.
plan, since I have them on grass during growing season, once I move them to the dry lot, which, I mean, we had grass, even though we were in a drought through November, here or a little bit into December. So from then on, until grass is growing again, I plan to coat. And then when they're on grass, just let them be on grass.
Right.
Let them be naked.
Right. Because they're a heritage breed, right?
Yes, they are.
So part of that is that diversity in fiber, right?
Yes.
Hardy. They're hard, right? I had churros
they're very
that make something out of nothing.
Yes.
Fierce good moms.
Yes. A lot of fun.
Oh. Well, I have been I got roving from you maybe a year ago.
I think so, yeah.
And I have been I spun at it for a long time, and then I ended up putting a bunch of bobbins away, and just recently have started to do some clean out, and I discovered it, and I just so excited to get back at it again. It's wonderful. I have some brownish white maybe, and then I have a darker black.
Nice.
So I read, so for a long time, like most breeds, the white was selected and bred, and the colored sheep were not desirable at all. And then breed by breed, someone discovered that fiber artists would be happy with natural colors. So now there are you talked to me when we messaged, you kind of talked about 4 main colors, but it sounds like there are more variations within color.
There are. So you of course have your white. Now in Finland, which is where they originated from, they will only breed brown to brown, black to black, white to white, to keep those colors super, super, super pure. Here in the United States, we kind of mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
So you've got your white, and you've got your black, and you have your brown. So those are your colors. And then There is the piebald, which is spotted, and that can be anything from, like, I've got one girl named Dottie. Well, I have two actually. I have Dottie with a Y and Dottie with an IE. Because Dottie with an IE, I purchased, and Dottie with a Y was born here. So,
Okay.
Dottie with a Y has one dot, one big black dot on her hip. Dottie with an IE is more of a traditional piebald, so she looks like a black and white cow. Pretty much.
Oh, so like
There's-
Jacob sheep spotty like that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Mhm. And then there's Dalmatian spotting, and it's just what it sounds like. It is just little spots. Now I guess they almost are more like German short hair pointer, that ticking
Okay.
kind of that you can get. So they're just like little constellation spots.
Like flea bitten, like a
And
flea bitten horse?
bitten.
Okay.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And what'll happen a lot of times when they're born, not super evident. It'll look like a white fleece, but you part that skin in areas and you see that darker pigmented skin. And
Okay.
then after their first shearing, you go, oh wow, I didn't see that. You know, like, and these spots appear, and then
It's
the next
Christmas.
shearing, there's more. Yeah. And those Dalmatian spots, they almost grow as they age, grow and multiply. And so you've got the Dalmatian spotting, which you can have in any color. Piebald you can have with any color. And then there's the badger face pattern. So brown and black. You'll have, say it's a brown badger, it'll be brown on their belly, their neck, kind of down the front of their back legs. In brown badgers, the white portion of the fleece, kind of over the saddle, the blanket area, is almost an oatmeal color. And
Okay.
then in black badgers, it's anything from like a gray to a silver type color,
Okay.
which is pretty cool. And actually, this was made from a badger. So it's like a
Yeah.
grayish silver. I love the badgers because for dyeing primarily, because when you get that kind of like an oatmeal brown, that nice warm brown oatmeal kind of color, when you put dye on top of that, you get so much depth with the
Right.
color,
Those
which is
gem
really
tones. Yeah.
yes,
Uh-huh.
exactly, exactly. And let's see, so badger, piebald, the Dalmatian spotting. There's some reverse badger face that have popped up, and it's pretty much just what it sounds like. Those colors just kind of flipped. They're a little bit harder to find. But so many variations. And you can also have piebald badgers too. So like badgers that have some spots in those white areas as well. So yeah, it's like Christmas when they pop out. It's like, what color is it going to be?
Right.
So yeah, all kinds of different variations.
Wow. So the
Yeah.
yarn makes me think. I wanted to ask, so does everything go to the mill once you're sheared, or
No.
what happens with your fiber?
A lot of it does go to the mill. Some for yarn, some for roving. I do hold back some for myself to hand process. I'll normally do like one or two kind of special fleeces that I hold back just for myself to hand process through. And then I will also hold back some that I'll hand process here. And then I've got a brother super card. So I will wash the fleece, dye it, and then I'll use that for making bats, things like that.
Right. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got other things going on your farm. I want to hear about the bees. I chatted with
Yes.
Annie Morton a couple of weeks ago, and she has bees. So I'm
Nice.
interested in bees and honey, and because that is
Yeah,
a part of
awesome.
the
Yeah.
business model on your farm.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Right now, they're all condensed down for winter. So I've got about 25-ish hives, I guess. And then in spring, when the population increases, I'll do lots of splits, and my number of hives will probably double. I'll probably have somewhere around 50 or so. They multiply quick, just like fins. And the boys help me a lot with the bees. They actually really enjoy that. I've got one that likes to work in the hives with me, and then one that prefers to work more with the honey as opposed to bees with the stingers. So he'll help me with extracting and bottling and things like that. But I do primarily do honey production, but also queen raising. So I've started to dabble a little bit into grafting, where you're actually taking larva from a preferred queen and grafting that into other hives to continue the genetics from that queen, and making queens as well, just to sell to other people that have a queenless hive and need a queen.
I hadn't thought about doing that with bees.
Yeah, it's really it's an art to do that, all that little grafting. It's so tiny, the little teeny tiny larva. But yeah, it's pretty neat.
So how often do you harvest honey? Is it just once a year, or?
Right now I'm doing just once a year, typically in July after our 4-H farm show. Because leading up to that, it's super busy. I'm a sheep club leader for our county's 4-H and the department head for the sheep club for the farm show. And I'm on the executive board and the secretary of the farm show. So it's like insane. My time is not my own in July. First weekend in July or right after 4th of July, is our farm show. And so right after that is typically when I get in there and harvest. But leading up to that, I'm in my hives about once a week. I'm in each hive to inspect it and do management tasks and things like that, check population levels and space requirements that they need. So if I need to add boxes or remove, or take some population from this one to add to another one to kind of even them out and things like that. But I would like to harvest in spring, and then again in the fall potentially. It just depends on the year that we have this year with the drought. That really affects their nectar supply. So in those years that are big and booming, I can do multiple harvests, but a year like this year, I've got to kind of just take what I can get.
Okay. Huh. Things I just never thought about.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, like we sell honey at the farmer's market, and let me grab this and show you. So
Are we gonna be able to ask questions?
You are. I'm gonna cut myself off here in about 2 minutes, and then we'll ask questions.
So this one was from this past year. This is from the year before, and you can see the color difference. And the hives that this came from, they were in the exact same location. So it's all about the difference is the nectar sources. So from year to year, if you have a drier year or if you have a wetter year, things are going to bloom at different rates at different times, in different quantities. And so therefore the nectar that they are harvesting will be different. So you end up with a different taste, a different
I was gonna say, I
look.
assume they taste very different.
They do. The dark one is, I think, just a little bit stronger of a flavor than the
Okay.
lighter one. My husband thought I was crazy the first time I told him this, but I was like, taste it. I was like, it tastes like the flowers smell. And it does. You get like that floral taste on the end with it. So
Huh.
yeah.
All right, so I want to run down some questions here. So somebody asked where you are. You're in Virginia, mid
Virginia. Mhm.
Okay. And then Annie asked, what's the least amount of sheep to own to make a good herd?
I like, she said they're about 4 as a minimum. A lot of people, and I've even said 3 as well. Downside to 3 is if something does happen to one of them, then you're just left with 2.
Right.
And being very strong herd animals, 2 does make them feel a little bit more vulnerable. So I kind of like 4 because if something happens to one, they still have 3. So I think it also depends on breed
And you're talking
because some
about
of them have
3 ewes
3 years.
and then a ram for 3 ewes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I prefer the rams to live either together as a group, or at least with like a weather buddy or something. I've had up to 15 rams living together before of all different ages. And I find that they don't get as frustrated.
They don't what?
And they don't get as frustrated when they
Mhm.
live in a group. They will get to interact, they build their hierarchy, they've got their little community, and I feel they're happier, and they have a nice little group like that.
Are your rams manageable?
Finns are known for their temperament, and I always say, just like roosters, there are too many nice ones in this world to keep a nasty one. And I won't breed one that is because they do pass that trait along.
Right.
And with kids, my own as well as 4-H kids coming here, I can't take that chance.
Right.
All of my rams, you can go in during breeding season. Chin scratches, I'm okay with. I don't do top of the head. Just because to them, that's speaking their language for, hey, let's be rowdy.
Right.
And I don't want to be rowdy with 200 pounds. So, yeah, I expect them to behave. And if they don't, then that's their decision, but
Yeah.
can't stay here.
Yep. Down the road or freezer camp.
Exactly.
Okay. So then, so they're a triple use sheep, right?
Yep. Meat, fiber, and dairy.
Yeah. That appeals to me because we had dairy goats for years and I don't want to milk the Angoras necessarily.
Yeah.
So that kind of appeals to me because I make soap.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So other questions that folks have?
Just speak up.
Yes, just speak up.
All right. Hi, I'm Cindy.
Hi.
I'm from Idaho.
Hi,
I
Cindy.
bought this from you about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago.
Nice.
A nice big cat. I love it.
Oh,
I'm just wondering what to spin it with to make like a next to skin garment, like to make a
as
sweater.
far as what to blend it with or tool wise or what to blend it with. I like it either on its own. This is Finn, the sweater that I'm wearing. And I don't wear anything under it. Just wear it by itself. Since I have them, I love to mix it with the French Angora, rabbit fiber. That gives a lot of drape when you add that. And it's nice and soft. Alpaca would be another one. Pretty much anything that is
Also next to skin.
comparable is, yeah.
I had another question about your bees. Do they hibernate?
Yes, they do in a sense. So When it gets cold out, they will actually seal up all the little cracks and crevices in the hive with what's called propolis, and it is basically their own bee glue. They make it from gathering sap from trees, and they kind of mix that with the enzymes that are in their mouth, and they're able to use that to seal it up. And so once temperatures drop below 50 consistently, I don't reopen the hive because it's going to break that seal, and that's like their weatherproofing and their, you know, weather stripping for the winter.
Yeah.
So they have their stored honey in the hive that they will, that's their pantry for the winter. And they go through about 50 to 60 pounds of honey over the course of the winter. They do, however, come out anytime that weather breaks about 50 degrees is roughly their flying weather. They do not use the bathroom in the hive. So they wait until it's like 50 or above. They will fly out, do their business, and fly back in. The queen is the only one who uses the facilities in the hive. Everyone else, because she doesn't leave the hive, everyone else goes outside to do that. So they do need to do that. So whenever we have snow, you need to clear the front of the hive, you know, their front porch off so they can get in and out. But for the most part, they stick tight, and they keep that hive at 95 degrees at all times, summer or winter. So they'll use the friction from their wings to create that heat in the hive to keep it at 95, and they'll also use their wings to fan the hive. Sometimes you'll see a bunch of them lined up on the front porch fanning air
To
conditioning.
cool it.
Help to cool it. Yeah.
I just have one last
Fascinating.
question.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into bees a while back, and the man who sells them and gets you set up, he said you have to be careful of other bees because they'll just attack a hive and destroy them and kill them. And I thought, whoa, that's a lot of money to, you know, I mean, a lot of bees to lose
Yeah.
if it
Yeah. So
happens.
absolutely. And that is something that can happen. A lot of times that'll happen during what's called the dearth. And that is the summertime when all of the spring flowers have stopped blooming and they really nectar sources are low because all those flowering trees and plants have kind of died off and are done with their blooms. So during that time, there'll be what's called robbing, where if some bees see that there's an easy source, they will 100% come into another hive and basically rob their pantry. And a lot of times that hive then will starve or killed by the invading hive.
Can you
So it's
do
definitely something
anything?
that can happen.
Can you do
That-
anything to help? Can you do anything to help?
Yeah, the biggest thing is a lot of times, if you have more than one hive, it's your own bees going after your own bees instead of like a wild source of bees that come in. So just maintaining all of your hives at an appropriate level where they have enough food stores. If they're not getting enough nectar sources, there's ways that you can feed them with sugar water and things like that to help them along. You just have to be careful if you do feed with sugar water, you can't harvest that honey. Any honey they make with sugar water, it's not real honey because it didn't come from a nectar source. So it's not good to eat. But yeah, as long as their pantry's full, they're for the most part, they're happy.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Anyone else have questions?
I do. I raised my hand, but I
Oh,
guess we're not
I
doing
see
the
it.
hand raising.
I forget to
Okay.
look for that. Time we go.
Hi. Great to see you, Ashley. Glad to see the
Yeah.
bees are doing well.
Yes.
So a couple of quick questions. First off, the honey is super yummy. So if anybody gets a chance, oh yeah. And you don't need to put it on you. Just eat it with spoon, just straight from the jar. The fiber is also fabulous. I love spinning it long draw. It makes a nice fluffy, airy fiber. very next to skin soft. So I know, Teddy, you were going, oh, ooh, got to get some of these sheep. Yeah, the fiber's phenomenal.
Yep.
Okay, so the yarn that you used in your picture for your event,
Mhm.
that colorway, when are you gonna dye that? I want 2 skeins, so put me down for the list. I want 2 skeins of that
Okay.
yarn. Okay, but it's got to be 100% fin. I can't do anything with alpaca because I'm allergic to that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's noted. Okay. Now I know you also use your the honey beeswax for your lotions and your salves and your soap
Yes.
with the milk for the soap. Okay. So you didn't talk too much about that here within this interview. Are you still doing that portion of with the farm?
Yep. Yeah, I am. So I do the beeswax soap. I do a beeswax salve. And I'm still doing a ton of that. I had my salve was just my Purely Simple originally. And essentially what I do is I use olive oil and I use coconut oil. And I solar infuse the olive oil with herbs in my garden. So I use rosemary, plantain, chamomile, and lavender. And it's kind of like making sun tea. So I the olive oil in a big mason jar and I have my herbs in there and it sits in the window and I, shake it a couple times a day when I walk past it. It sits for about 30 days. I strain those herbs off and then I use that resulting oil that's infused with the herbs, blend it with my beeswax to make my salve. And it was just the Purely Simple that was totally unscented. It was just the natural beeswax and the oil smell. Recently I started doing some scented ones as well. I sent them with essential oils. I had a friend that wanted a citrus, and so I started playing with different blends of citrus essential oils. So I've got the citrus, I have a rosemary mint, lavender and geranium, cedar wood and sage. I've got, I think, 7 different blends now. So I've expanded those a little bit, which have been a lot of fun. And then my beeswax soap as well. So I do regular cold process soap, and I add beeswax in. It makes for a harder bar, and then that beeswax really helps to seal the moisture into the skin. So that's also really fun.
Okay. So the rosemary mint, excuse me, rosemary mint salve without mint, is it available or is it only a rosemary mint?
Right now I only have the rosemary mint made up, but if you send me a
So
message,
keep it on
I
the back
can
burner, rosemary
I
with
can
no
make
mint.
Yep.
Okay, and you're adding beeswax to the soaps now?
Yeah, so my soap is it's a regular cold process soap. So
I
it's
know I
the
love her soaps.
oil
I have
formalized.
lots of her soaps I've used, but you
Yeah.
didn't have beeswax in those before, but you're now doing that.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yep. So I've got the soap with the beeswax in it.
So, and that's all available on your farm page, which Teddy will say, where can we find you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
Facebook
Bev
and
wants
on my
rosemary
website.
also, the salve with rosemary also. So you have 2 of us.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we can go on your farm page then to get
Yep.
the soap because I like the idea of the beeswax in that soap. It'll last a little bit longer, but her soaps are phenomenal, guys. I mean, I've tried all of her products. I just absolutely love everything that
Thank
Ashley
you.
has done, and it's great to see her here. So awesome. Thank you. I'm
Thank
done
you.
with
And
my questions. I'm gonna go shop.
I stuck my website address in the comments there too, so that way it's easy to find.
Perfect. So, when I post this on YouTube, the chat won't be there. So tell us
Okay.
what that website is as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's Cedar View Farm, VA for Virginia.com.
Okay. So you are in the WAFA show next week.
Yes, I am.
What will you have for us during the show?
I will have a yarn. I've got some of it behind me here. And then I will have bats and roving. I have a goal of how many bats that I'm gonna try to get made in time. I've been sitting working on that past couple days, getting all that done. And then as far as roving, I don't have any mill-made roving, but I've got my brother's super carder, so I'll be able to diz roving off of that. So I hope to have some small batch blends of the roving as well, because I know there's quite a few people that prefer one, one over the other, bats roving over particular.
All right. So aside from your website, where else can we find you? Facebook.
I am on Instagram, and Facebook. I do have a YouTube channel, which I haven't added stuff to in forever and a day. I had some things on there a while ago. It's still up there. And then I had started a TikTok account for the farm. I haven't kept up with that. I end up like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh, I need to get pictures of this to put on. That would be really fun. And then, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. What can you
And
do
dark,
with that?
right?
Yeah, exactly. And by the next day, I've forgotten. So my goal for this year is to be better about sharing on social media what I'm doing, what the farm's doing, and all of that. So I'm gonna hold myself to it this year.
Wonderful. So Instagram and Facebook, Cedar View Farm VA.
Cedar View Farm VA for Facebook. Unfortunately for Instagram, it's different. It's Cedar_View_Farm.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any last minute questions that Ashley can answer for us? All right. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for
It's a
doing
lot
this.
of fun.
It was really fun, and I got all my questions answered. No, most of
Aw.
them. I'm just excited about those little sheep. So
Yeah. Yes. Well, based on ultrasound numbers, we should have 50 some, I'm thinking, roughly, born this year. So much more manageable than last year. Yeah, we'll have lots of little lambs.
so I'm curious. I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
So what happens with those lambs? You keep some in your breeding program?
Yeah. So starting this year, I am not taking any reservations on lambs until after weaning.
Okay.
I do a ton of data collection on them. And I like to use all of that data to decide who makes the cut for breeding. And so once they're weaned, and I have an idea of kind of how they're growing, their parasite resistance, how their growth rate is. Hopefully this year it'll be a primarily grass diet as opposed to green. How I take into account all that stuff, how their mother was as a mom, everything. And those lambs that are cut out for breeding, they will go into a big spreadsheet with photos and all of the things, and that goes out to my list of people that have expressed interest in lambs. And then it's going to just be first come, first serve on those lambs. Anyone who doesn't make the cut, they will end up going to market. And then I do reserve ones for myself as well to add to the breeding program. And I think this year I've decided to also hang on to a nice little weather flock, just as some cool little wool boys, because I always end up amazing. They're so much fun. And
they're easy.
They're so easy. And they can take a joke, and they're just fun.
Yep.
So I'm gonna end up hanging on to some little boys and have just a nice little weather wool flock as well, in addition to to my ewes. So that's going to be kind of fun too.
I love that. I love little weather boys. They're just so easy and fun.
Yeah. Well, and it'll let me keep my numbers where I want without like last year, 88 lambs from 33 ewes was a lot. And I lambed them all out myself. And I was a zombie. I mean, it was, I want to say it was like over 20 days. I had 88 lambs. It was insane. And I'm not getting younger. I feel it, I feel it more and more every day. So it'll allow me to keep my numbers up to where I've got the amount of wool that I want produced, but still have a nice kind of size breeding flock that's manageable. And with the way fins are, I mean, because people are like, well, why don't you just have them all used and then you can breed who you want when you want. These fin rams are determined.
Yeah.
And they would climb a prison fence, to get to the girls. So I can keep a small number of girls, a nice little weather flock, and I think it'll be really fun.
Well, and it sounds like you have a market for your lambs.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
Definitely. I even with 88 lambs last year, I still had to turn some people away and I'm super picky on the breeding stock as far as what's going to make that cut. Because they're so sweet that personable that sometimes you end up seeing ones get bred that probably shouldn't be breeders. And so I want to be extra picky to make sure that it's just that top 10% that really is out there.
So are most
Actually-
folks that purchasing lambs purchasing to start their own flocks or to add to their own flocks?
Sorry, say that again. It broke up a little bit.
Most folks who are purchasing lambs from you have their own flocks or are starting their own flocks. Okay.
Yeah, so I do I have a couple different rams that I use, and I have different little breeding groups with varied genetics, so I can set up starter flocks with an unrelated ram and some ewes. And then I also have some varied genetics for people that already have a flock that are looking to add certain qualities and characteristics in. And then any new it goes for anybody that buys sheep from me, but especially my new sheep people, I do always offer mentorship. So contact me at anytime, any question. There's no silly question. Shoot a message and I'll help you figure it out. So
Wonderful.
I have a
Annie, do you have a question?
Hi, Ashley. Hi, I'm in Colorado. How do I find people like you in Colorado where I have 4 alpacas, but I've been thinking about their goats and or sheep, and I would really like somebody who would get me the starter flock and then also mentor me. Are there special associations where I really like Shetland, I really like Finn, and I want somebody to be local or at least within a couple hours? Like Teddy is a couple hours away from me, so I'm gonna learn from her about her goats.
Yeah, there are a couple of breeders here.
yes, there are, and so Finnsheep.org
Okay.
is the association's website. When you go to their website, they have a members directory that is only going to list breeders who have paid for an actual members directory listing. If you go, how do we do this? There is another place. Tell you what, and if you shoot me a message, I can send you a direct link. There is I'm having trouble finding it on website now, but there's a place where you can sort by state and all that good jazz on there.
Yep.
So
I'd
send me a
love that
message.
too.
I'll find it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Annie, I can share what I found. I found a breeder not too far from an hour from me, which would be probably an hour or so from you. So I'm happy to share that.
Here it is.
Yeah. I made
You go,
contact. I want to meet sheep. I want meet the sheep. And I want to spin a fleece from raw. So that's the research that I'm doing. But I'm waiting for a fleece from you, Ashley.
yes.
But I'm
And I
still
d-
gonna go and meet the sheep here because I
Yeah,
really,
definitely.
I had thought little sheep, but I'm just so enamored with everything about fins.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
I did find it on the website. If you go to the pedigree tab at the top of that page that opens up, it says breeders directory. And from there you can sort it by state and name and all of that good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
all right, we've got a yappy dog in the background. All right, this was so wonderful. Thank you all for being here. Ashley,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing
Thank
this.
you.
I'm catching up on the Fiberside chat onto the YouTube channel. So I've got 2 more plus this one. So I'm almost in the place where I'm gonna have them up in the next week. So that's happening. And
What's
this
the
was
name of
just
that?
wonderful. What?
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's the Wool and Fiber Arts YouTube channel.
Oh, I didn't know they had one.
We do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Teddy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.